Hi, and welcome to the podcast channel for podcastmybusiness.com.au and also for contentmadeeasy.com.au, where you'll find the video of this podcast interview. And today we have Steve Hall from Be Aligned. Yes, B as in B.com.au. How are you, Steve?
I'm very good. Thank you, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here, my friend.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, Steve does a bit of coaching and a whole range of things to help dads, especially in their 40s and what have you, because he's been there, done that, like a lot of us have that sort of experience. But one of the biggest challenges for everybody these days, right, is how do you be aligned? How do you stay inspired and ready for the next challenge?
That's a really good question, Tony, and it's probably the crux of what I do and who I help too. So it's a bigger question than you may realize, but people really know when they are being challenged and they need to get help because they can feel it. With men, their life can be falling apart, but it's their career they focus on. So when their career isn't inspiring them or they feel like they have to go to work and they're not enjoying it, that's the catalyst that causes them to finally do something about it, more so than when their relationship's falling apart or the kids are running amok.
Yeah, we tend to be focused on work because it's something we can try and control. Trying to control, especially teenagers, is nowhere near as easy as controlling your job, or is it?
Well, yes and no. We do focus on our career. It's sort of like the harder we're experiencing life in relationships, in health, in all aspects, the more we seem to focus on our career. But if we're not enjoying our career, that's, like I said, when it really starts getting very difficult for men and we don't know really how to deal with it. So do it working with one. What I've found is when you work on your career and you get your career right first, it's a really good foundation to flow on to the rest of your life, because what you learn in that process of getting in alignment with your career also helps you align with your family.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I know that's a common expression for mothers less so than fathers. But what's the most important career, being a father or at work?
Both. If you do it right, your career is what becomes an example of how you go to life to your family, especially to your children. They watch how you deal with your own pressures, your own stresses, how you walk the talk. And I think that men, particularly dads, could learn a lot about giving less advice and being more of an example. The time for giving advice is when your kids are up to 12 years of age. Beyond that, you need to really get engaged in their world and find out more about them and just be quiet and be an achiever. Show them how you deal with things, because we'll follow an example far more than we'll follow advice.
Mm. You raised a very, very valid point there about age. So, does every child, once they hit 12, turn into a little shit?
Things change, and we might think they've turned into a little shit because of the way that they're now interacting with us. Go on from 12 when you get up to 15 and 17, especially with teenage boys. The common problem that I hear men express is that they're young teenage men are playing on computer games all night and they can't get them off, and they know they've got an exam the next day, or they should be out meeting people or having a life. And parents are getting very frustrated with their inability to connect and get kids to see the problem. So they solve that by giving more advice and getting grumpier and trying to lay down the law. But it really is a time when your teenagers are looking for their own identity, and they want you to see them as an individual capable of making their own choices.
Mm.
The problem gets in the way when we think we know better. We know what they're going to do wrong, and we try and circumvent that because we love them by giving them advice, well-meaning as it is. But really, we need to get engaged and be an observer and an example from our own life, and listen and let them make mistakes. And with your support, you're there to catch them when they fail, because that's how they learn. They watch how you do things, and then they learn from their own efforts, their results, whether they're good or bad. And that's your job, to empower those you love, especially your kids, by letting them fail in a safe place, with knowing that you'll be there and non-judgmental, that you're there to help them, not to live their life for them.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And there's an easy way for men to connect with teenage boys: play computer games.
Well, yes, as funny as it may seem, because I have dads who really don't like the computer games. They don't really understand them. They see them as a waste of time, etc. And their efforts are put into trying to get their kids to play less of them. But that's exactly what I encourage them to do. I say, enter their world instead of telling them to conform to yours because it's better, it's safer, and you know best. Enter theirs, and it's a really good idea, Tony. What you say is like, can you show me how to play this game? I'd like to learn. They'd have a lot of fun trashing you,
Yeah.
beating the pants off you, but it's not about that. It's about you being able to let them demonstrate what they're learning and what they're enjoying, even if you don't really get it or into it. But that is bonding. That is a bonding exercise that is well worth having. Forget about the results or whether you win or not, or whether you enjoy it or not. Your ability to sit there and enter their world and see what lights them up and what are their skills and abilities, what's their thinking process. Your ability, it's an opportunity for you to ask them questions. How do you deal with that problem? Or what would you, all this sort of stuff is gold, but you've got to have that connection first. And when you're giving advice, you build up a resistance to all that. I heard it said once, Tony, it's really stuck with me. The giving advice is a subtle form of force. And when you push or apply force to something, you build up a resistance. It's the law of nature. So you've got to stop giving advice. And it was really difficult for me to learn that, I can tell you, because I'm a natural
Yeah.
advice giver, especially as a dad.
Well, especially, I mean, again, men and teenagers and their sons and daughters, we're so used to being assertive. And we were talking before about me that I'm a particular bulldozer. Um, and all you want to do is bulldoze. So, how do I get into all this woo woo shit?
Show them the example of you bulldozing. Show them how it works for you and how it lights you up and why you enjoy it. But then turn it off and pause it. And how you get into it is stop trying to influence them by taking control of their life to make it better for them.
Mm.
Take a deep breath and do what you said before. Ask them about, show me how you play this game, or can you show me what you're doing? Show me why you like playing loud music all the time. Show me why you like, enter their world on their terms and watch them. That's your chance for them to be the example to you. And in doing so, you're teaching them how to connect with other people, how to listen, how to pause, how to, not get your own way all the time, and all these sort of things. Probably do you the world of good, Tony.
Well, it's interesting because in the world of work, when we have supervisors and managers and bosses and the like, there's a wonderful expression of the only way you get respect is by earning it. And if you're showing some respect for what your children are up to, getting them to show you, then you're earning their respect.
Exactly. And again, you're being the example. And you're earning the respect by empowering to make their own mistakes without you judging them for it and saying, I told you so, or I told you that last week and you never listened, and all this sort of good advice. It's sort of time to let them make mistakes and go, well, what do you think you'll do different next time? Or what have you learnt from that? But be there and be there, not just their cheerleader, they don't need that. It's about enter their world, be the example and be the observer, because that's what you'd have to do if you entered their world on their terms.
Mm. Okay, so it's much more difficult for boys and teenagers and whatever these days to learn how to be a man because the rules keep changing. And certainly the rules that we grew up with, you go out to a nightclub, you meet someone, you hook up or whatever, that's all changed a lot now. How can you help boys and teenagers navigate all of that? Because we don't know half of it ourselves.
We don't need to. And again, it gets back to, I'm just reminded of coaching. I don't know all the answers for everybody's problems. I help them discover their own answers for their own reality. And so it's the same. And I get back to the career as being the vehicle that we do that with. We show them how we do ours. And then you take a deep breath and you don't pretend to know anything when you enter theirs. You ask them to show you, show me what you do and what you like, etc. But then also when you've got that connection, you can start building up the trust where they'll start sharing with you what the problems are. Dad, how do I meet a girl? Or look what happened when I tried, or all this sort of stuff. They'll start explaining to you, and that's when you can really stop again giving advice and just go, well, what do you want and what are you trying to achieve and what is the problem and how would you overcome that? And it really turns the table on the story of being a parent, I guess, where you think that you grow up and you have to know that how to give advice to your kids forevermore and show them what to do. No, that's your job up to 12, and then it's sort of like learn how they've received all that and how they're implementing it, and let them show you, and then you both treat each other as equals beyond that point.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a common question that teenage boys have, and I'm curious how you would answer it. Vroom, vroom, vroom.
Yeah, one word answers. How are you today? Fine. What are you feeling like today? Good. And again, you need to get that connection, and you have to let them engage in what they love doing and be showing you how they do it. That's when you start getting the communication. It's not about what you want to talk about. That's why they give the one syllable word grunt replies, because you're always advising them, always telling them what you want and how you expect them to be. And it's about time we turn the tables on that.
Because we ask questions because we're probing, and that's why we get the monosyllable responses, because they don't want us to probe. They don't want to tell us what they're up to. So I hung up with my friends. Okay, yes, somebody was smoking some weed, and yes, I know I'm not supposed to smoke weed, but am I telling you that I'm going to be smoking weed? Well, of course I'm not.
Um, well, yes and no. I found that my daughters, I've got 4 daughters, they tell me more now. I stopped giving as much advice as I used to. Notice I said as much advice because I still find it hard to perfect.
Yeah,
But they actually call me for advice now, which is a big turnaround, and they tell me everything, Tony, absolutely everything, even the stuff I don't want to hear. It's sort of like
yeah, I know that
too
feeling.
much for an old
Yeah,
dad's ears, but
yeah,
I don't judge them. I listen, and what's the difference between you and their friends? How come they can talk incessantly to their friends? It's because their friends are also finding what they do interesting, and they don't judge. They talk the talk. Well, you got to be in their life to be included in that, so you can just start asking the questions that will light them up, that they'll be happy to tell you about, because they want your approval. They probably even want to shock you sometimes and see what happens when they do. But it's sort of like you sit there and listen and absorb it. And when they ask your advice or your opinion, that's when you give it, and they will listen then. But you just got to wait to build up the connection between you and your kids enough so that they will get to that stage where they'll finally start asking you your opinion because they value you being in their life so much.
yeah. It's like they'll sit there and they'll tell you all that's happening to them and ask questions, and you say, okay, maybe try this, maybe try that, whatever, and then they don't ask you a single question about you.
Well, again, you've got to be the example, and that's why I say it gets back to your career and how you're operating in your career and doing what you
Yeah,
do. And
yeah,
half the problem is men end up in careers that don't really, it's not their dream career, it's what they believe they're good at and can
yeah,
do. And so we're never really showing our kids how to really love what we do and get absorbed in it. So that's where it comes back to us. We need to be the example, live our own life that we're trying to get our kids to do. We're trying to get the best job for them and make sure they're as happy as they can be. We need to demonstrate to them what that looks like instead of going to a job where we feel like we have to go there. We've got to start going, where is my career taking me? Is it really taking me where I really want to be? Do I feel like I have to go to work? Or do I roll up my sleeves, rub my hands together and go, I want to go to work?
well,
When
that's
you
a
do what you
difficult
love,
thing.
you become a better example to your kids on how to be happy and enjoy life than half the dads that they probably have, which was what I used to be like. They see you mope around and grizzle and say how hard life is, but you're the one earning the money and you do it because you love them. I think it's
Yeah,
time we show them how much you can love a life and dare to seize our career by the whats and go for it.
yeah, well, that makes sense. All right, so what are a couple of quick tips about how to lead more extraordinary lives?
Yeah. One thing I find missing, Tony, a lot of us believe we know who we are, and I would challenge that. We don't know half of what we're capable of. And when I ask men, what's your vision for life? They tell me what their retirement vision is, which turns out to be really a goal. Retirement is really a goal. And that's as far as they think. I want to buy a four-wheel drive and go around Australia, half of them say to me. But really, we need to think beyond that. We need to think, what do we want to stand for? What do we want our life to mean? At the end of our days, where do we want to be? What would that look like? We need to inspire ourselves with an overall purpose, an overarching destiny, I call it, because then you don't get so entangled in any one particular part of your life being all that you need because you've got all your eggs in one basket. You know, when you really know what you stand for and what your life's all about, you can run off track in your career or in your relationship, and you've got somewhere to come back to that will straighten you up and give you that balance that you're looking for. So I would say to men, find out what you stand for and how are you living that. Is everything in your life taking you towards that point? Or are you just working as hard as you can at a job that doesn't really inspire you, hoping to get to retirement? So inspire yourself beyond retirement. Have a life that, you know, you can be an example to everyone the whole entire way, not just until retirement where you teach them how to turn off and just look after yourself and go fishing.
Yeah, that's true. I was just thinking about that. So for me, I'd say, look, my objective is to have a happy life and help others have a happier life.
Brilliant. And I think the best thing you can do, the best vision you could ever have, will involve you being of service some way to other people, whether it's philanthropy or whatever it is that you do, however you can see being of service to other people, that is going to light you up and give you purpose way more than retirement, where you basically the focus is on entertaining yourself. And then you will feel like you're no longer of as much value as you used to be.
Absolutely true. So yeah, so that's what I mean. So I did painting a few years ago. You haven't been bored with any of my paintings. I don't get back into showing some of my paintings.
Yeah.
But so I'll get back into that when I retire. I'm working towards that. I'm now doing more towards that in the next few months or what have you. Because yeah, you're right. You got to plan ahead. You don't plan one day ahead. A plan. My plan is like 9 years away or 10 years away. In fact.
Well, you don't even have to have an end date on any plan, or
Yeah.
if you really create a vision worth having that'll draw you towards it,
Yeah.
there's no end date.
Yeah.
You know, and it's sort of like everything you do, then you'll add value to it the things in your life that will take you towards your vision, and it devalues all of the things that are time wasters in your life. It's a really good motivational tool to create a vision and an overarching destiny for yourself. And I would say, why are you putting off painting for a future date? You know, find out what painting gives you and incorporate some of that. Like painting is a vehicle, you know, to express your values. Well, find out what that is and see if you can find ways in your current business to express that. And so don't wait until you retire to do things. That's another mistake that I think we all make.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I will get back into it. I've got a few people that have commissioned some works from me that I haven't even started working on. Yeah. The thing about anything artistic, you have to wait for the call to start working on it. And people don't
Well,
realise that.
I would challenge that what you do is very artistic. Interviewing me now is an art,
Thank
and
you.
the art of communication. That's why I'm saying find out what painting a picture gives you. I'm sure there's other ways of expressing that, and I'm pretty sure you're doing it right now.
Thank you, Steve. I
To
appreciate that.
really appreciate what you do and add more value to what you currently do, and think, I don't need to retire to do that. I can bring out more of it.
Yeah, I do. I do enjoy this, and I sort of fell into it in a way. I just like communicating. I like talking to people. I like hearing what people have got to say. I like listening to them, and I love helping people to communicate. So, and
Fantastic.
there's no end date to that. I'll be doing this for another 20 years.
And that's what you want to project forwards into a vision. You know, when you're 90 or 100, where are you with all that, and who's around you, and who's benefited from it?
Yeah, yeah,
How
that's
do you
actually a
do
good
it?
point. All right, thank you very much for that, Steve. I think we've got plenty more that we can be discussing in the future. So, I'll try and get you back on as well. Now, so we'll go back onto your website. Whoops. Okay, it's Be Aligned. That's BEEALIGNED.com.au, and on
That,
your
that
website.
Tony, just like to pull you up on that. That's my email. My
Oh,
website is the Game Changer.
I apologise. So it's thegamechanger.com.au.
Thank you so much, buddy.
No, that's fine. Okay, I will clarify. I don't know how I got that one. It's the
That's
game
because
changer.
I got two email addresses. That's why.
Okay, well there we go. So thegamechanger.com.au. I know that you'll give people a quick session, and they can book a quick session to find out a bit more from you. And anything else you'd like to add?
No, I've really enjoyed the podcast. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Right. Thank you very much.